Hey guys, Scare9 here, welcome back to my channel today, and in this video, we are going to be ranking all 9 of the existing raid exotics between Destiny 1 and Destiny 2. I'm really excited for this, so let's just jump into it. As always, these are my opinions. This video is coming out right in the final weeks of Season 10, so if the raid exotic comes out in Season 11 or 12, it's not going to be included in this video, so please don't leave comments like, you forgot so-and-so, so blah, 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 blah. Happens every time. It doesn't exist yet. I promise you, every raid exotic is on this list. We're not going to be counting Outbreak Perfected from Destiny 2. Not technically a raid weapon, even though it's themed on a Destiny 1 raid weapon, but the Outbreak Prime will be included in this video. I'm sorry for the awful gameplay. For the Destiny 1 weapons, I haven't touched a controller in a very long time, like near a year. Console gameplay is a lot slower anyways. It was a mess. So I hope it's all right. And then the main ranking criteria for each of the weapons, I'm looking at how the weapon performs in PvE and PvP, as well as I think it's really important for raid exotics, how exotic they truly feel. And that's something I'll break down a little bit more as it becomes pertinent to the discussions, but let's just go ahead and get into it. So in the number 9 slot, we have the Touch of Malice. It has 2 perks, the Touch of Malice perk, which makes it so the final round of the magazine regenerates and deals bonus damage at the cost of the wielder's life force. And then the perk Touch of Mercy makes it so that 3 rapid kills will return a portion of your health back to you. I hate it. I hate this gun so much. Weapons that damage you when you use them are not fun to use. I dislike how Bungie keeps making them. I think we only have like 2 or 3 at this point, but they're not fun at all. No one wants to hurt themselves. It's the trade-off is not worth it, at least in my mind. It's not fun. It doesn't flow very well. It's good for a total of 1 encounter in Destiny 1, and that's because the encounter literally makes you immune as part of the mechanics. But other than that, it's not fun to use at all. And honestly, I just don't enjoy it at all. And that's where I ranked it last place in this video. Now in the number 8 slot, we have the Teraba. From this point on, in my opinion, there's not really a bad exotic on this list. They're all pretty usable in their own ways and shapes and form. The Teraba definitely fits into the lower end of that though. It has 2 perks, Ravenous Beast. This weapon stores power when dealing or receiving a damage. Once full, hold reload to unleash the beast. And Bottomless Appetite, which makes it so that dealing continuous damage extends the duration of Ravenous Beast. Now, this is easily one of the most disappointing exotics, but it's not bad. I think that's an important clarification to make. On its own, this gun is super good. In a vacuum, it's very usable. It's a monster. It does a lot of damage to both majors and minor enemies. It's very, very fun, but when you put it into a game that has the Recluse, the Huckleberry, the Risk Runner, all of these top tier insane SMGs, some of which are legendary, some of which are exotic, it doesn't compete at all. And I think that was a kind of lack of foresight when they were designing this weapon, especially because whenever you put it away and bring it back out, you lose your Ravenous Beast charge that you had stored up, whether it's half or all the way full or whatever. It completely destroys the flow of gameplay. Whereas something like the Recluse, if you get a kill with your primary and switch to Recluse, you actually activate Master of Arms based on that. It's much more fluent, it's much more effective, it's easier to activate that perk, you have more uptime on it. And I think that was just a lack of foresight when they were designing the Teraba, and I really hope in the future this thing gets some sort of buff that makes it more usable. I can definitely see it being like a top tier exotic sometime in the future, but for right now, it's kind of a waste of space. It's not that great, and that's why I'm ranking it in the number 8 slot. Now in the number 7 slot, this is actually kind of tied for number 6 for me. This is going to be the Vex Mythoclast. I know it might make a couple people kind of mad. As a couple perks, Timeless Mythoclast. This weapon has no charge time. It fires a single bolt with each trigger pull. It also has Zen Moment and Crowd Control as its main other perks as well. It's the original raid exotic. It was the first exotic, in my opinion, that felt truly exotic. Look at the name exotic, right? That means it feels different. It feels alien. It feels foreign. And so this was a really, really great weapon to introduce the idea of exotic weapons. It was one of the first ones in the entire franchise. It did a great job of conveying what a Vex weapon would look like. Unfortunately, it's not the most effective thing in the world in like PvE. It's pretty good in Crucible. It's definitely usable. Back in vanilla Destiny 1, it was incredibly usable, but we don't rank things based on how good they used to be. We rank them on how good they are now. Vex Mythoclast could be a lot better, but it's a very exotic feeling weapon, and that's very important to me. So that's why I'm ranking it here above the other ones. And like I said, it is essentially tied with number 6 in my opinion, which is going to be the Necrochasm. The Necrochasm has 2 perks: Cascade, melee kills automatically reload a portion of this weapon's magazine, and Cursebringer, kills with this weapon trigger a Cursed Thrall explosion. Once again, just another great example of an exotic feeling weapon, right? It's not the most powerful weapon in the world, but everything you shoot explodes like a Cursed Thrall would. It looks really, really awesome. It feels awesome, and it really feels like you're using a piece of Hive weaponry and not just some random SMG that you picked up off of the ground in Calus's basement, right? So, like I said, Vex Mythoclast, Necrochasm kind of tied in my mind, but they're going to come in 7 and 6. Necrochasm is decent in PvE. It's pretty good in PvP. All auto rifles of that archetype are pretty good in Destiny 1, from what I remember and from what I was playing around with today. But once again, sort of tied in my mind. Now we're going to go on to the number 5 slot. That is going to be the Outbreak Prime. Once again, we are not counting the Outbreak Perfected on this list because it's not a raid weapon. It comes from like a mini dungeon event thing. Outbreak Prime is a raid weapon. It had one of the craziest quests to get it. It was a lot of fun. It had 2 perks: the Corruption Spreads. Enemies that take repeated hits from this weapon spawn Siva nanites that attack other enemies, fall and take extra damage. And then you have Virulence, hard word to say, Virulence. And then you have the second perk of
Virulence.
Precision kills release a Siva nanite swarm that attacks other enemies. What an amazing weapon. This was easily one of my favorite exotic weapons in Destiny 1. It's good in everything. It was really good in PvE. You get some pretty strong boss damage with it as well. You also, in Crucible, it is insane. It's a lot of fun to use. It has a very, very high amount of stability, which in Destiny 1 was incredibly important because everything was controller gameplay. It was very easy to use. It was very easy to take on large groups of enemies with it because the nanites would help disorient all other players, even in Crucible. It was a lot of fun. Felt truly exotic. We were wielding the power of Siva. It looks amazing. It sounds amazing. It performs amazingly. Honestly, easily the best Destiny 1 exotic weapon that comes from raids, in my opinion, and it's definitely very high on this list for me. It easily competes with everything else pretty much that comes after it. A lot of fun, and I'm very happy with how that weapon turned out. Now in the number 4 slot, we have the Legend of Acreus with its 2 perks: Shock Blast. This weapon fires high damage arc energy that over-penetrates enemies, and Long March. Detect enemies on your radar from further away. That one doesn't really matter that much, but essentially you shoot the Acreus. It's a huge just arc blast. It's got decent range. It one-shots pretty much anything you throw at it in the Crucible. In PvE, it is one of the highest DPS burst weapons, especially that have the arc element. It's a lot of fun to use. A lot of people keep this in their inventory if they're doing like low man challenges. I believe it's the go-to damage for things like 2-man Galron. It's very, very consistent. It's very good. It's not hard to keep ammo for it in PvE. And honestly, it's good for everything. You can take out large groups of bad enemies, like, you know, Thrall or whatever. You could take out majors with pretty much 1 or 2 shots, and it does amazing damage to bosses as well. All around, and a fantastic feeling weapon. It really fits the theme of being exotic. Once again, it feels like a piece of Cabal weaponry. It does that very well. It makes you feel incredibly powerful. And yeah, I love this weapon. That's why it's in the number 4 slot. Now we're gonna move to the number 3 slot, which is conceptually my favorite exotic pretty much ever. Just in terms of the air that it has and the lore and how it looks and how it feels, that is going to be the 1000 Voices. If this doesn't, this is the definition of how exotic weapons should feel and look. It truly feels like something not of this world, not of this dimension. It is absolutely insane. I love it a lot. And yeah, let's talk about it. As 2 perks, Ahamkar's Eye. Charging this weapon unleashes a giant continuous beam of death and unforeseen repercussions. This weapon's beam superheats its targets upon impact, causing delayed explosions. Essentially, it's a fusion rifle. You draw stuff and it blows up. It looks incredible. It truly, really just is kind of like the gun embodiment of Riven. It does insane amounts of burst damage in PvE. For a long time, this was like the go-to heavy. It's one of the best solar heavy weapons still to this day. I know a lot of people who will use it for like things like the Sanctified Mind and that thing very consistently. It's very, very good in that. In PvP, it's pretty good. It'll shut down supers. Invading in Gambit, this thing is one of the most top tier and overused weapons in Gambit. It's very annoying to combat because it is so powerful. It's hard to dodge and it's very easy to use. I love this thing. It's a great weapon, and that's why it's in the number 3 slot. Now in the number 2 slot, we have the Divinity, another super, super unique weapon. It has 2 perks. Judgment, sustained damage from this weapon envelops the target in a field that weakens and disrupts them. And then Penance, targets under the effect of Judgment long enough are struck with a burst of damage. Easily one of the best exotics we've had come out of the Shadowkeep era of Destiny. It's incredibly fun to use. It makes things like Grandmaster Nightfalls, raids, strikes, pretty much any PvE activity a complete joke. I know a lot of teams will run this in Gambit as well to melt their primevals. It is incredibly fun to use. It's very easy to use. It's very effective. But most importantly, once again, it feels like Vex technology being used against our enemies. I can't stress how important a weapon's feel is to me. I want things to feel exotic, especially if they're coming from something like a raid. I want it to truly feel like something I earned in a piece of an enemy that I conquered and I'm using to my own advantage. And I think the Divinity does this excellently, and that is why it is in the number 2 slot. And now, the best raid exotic currently, in my opinion, is going to be Anarchy. I would think you would be hard pressed to find anyone who disagrees with this. It is easily one of the most unique exotics we've ever had in Destiny history in terms of functionality, sticking mines, making shapes, hurting multiple enemies based on chaining together these different arc mines. It is incredibly effective, and it truly, once again, feels exotic. This is a piece of fallen technology that we have taken and just made our own, and really, it just kicks ass. It is probably the exotic that I run the most in all of my PvE loadouts, especially when I'm doing solo things. It is incredibly powerful. It's easy to use. When you pair it with something like Mountaintop or a Sniper, it has insane amounts of damage, rivaling even like the OG Gallowhorn. This thing is insane how much damage you can put out when you pair it with the right combination of weapons. It is definitely a go-to, and I would say out of any weapon in this list, if you had to pick one that you always have on you as part of your arsenal, it would 100% be the Anarchy. Go pick it up, go run Scourge of the Past as many times as you need to. The Anarchy is absolutely worth it. It's a fantastic weapon, and honestly, it feels and performs just better than pretty much most exotics, let alone raid exotics. But at the end of the day, I think we're lucky to have so many great, just truly, truly great raid exotics. There's a couple that need tweaks in order to really realize their full potential, looking at you, Teraba. But all in all, these weapons are some of the most unique and powerful exotic weapons that we have ever seen in the Destiny universe, and I'm very excited to see what is coming next. So let me know your list down in the comment section below. I hope you guys did enjoy this video. If you did, make sure to leave a like rating and to share it with your friends. If you're interested in watching either of the 2 videos on screen, you can click at their respective annotations to be taken to them. If you're brand new to my channel, make sure to the giant version of my logo on screen to be subscribed for more awesome Destiny 2 videos and live streams. Thank you guys so much for watching today, and I will see you in my next video.